Good evening, and welcome to the Garfield Heights City School District, Monday, November 15th, regular board meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Mr. Saluka, can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Ms. King.
Here.
Mr. Druby.
Here.
Ms. Morrison.
Here.
Ms. Thomas.
Here.
Mrs. Daniels.
Present. Thank you, Mr. Saluka.
President Daniels, before we get started, could I just say, if anybody wishes to speak to the board, we have a sign-up sheet. The first table, please sign up. There's two spots to sign up for. One is for if you want to speak on an agenda item, which we have agendas up on the table, or if you want to speak on a non-agenda item at the end of the meeting, we ask that you either check one or two if you want to speak. So we need you to sign up there. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda, please? Mr. Saluka, that was moved by Mr. Juby and second by Ms. King. Can I have roll call, please?
Mr. Juby.
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes.
Ms. Morrison.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas.
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes. At this time, we'll have a moment of silent reflection, and after that, we will be led with the Pledge of Allegiance by our board member, Mr. Juby. And as we have our moment of silent reflection, this month we are approaching Thanksgiving. This is a good opportunity to reflect on the many things that we have to be thankful for.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Motion for the approval of the minutes for board meetings for October 11th. Yes. Monday, October 11th. Mr. Saluka. So can I have a motion to accept the amendment and approve the minutes as amended? That was moved by Mr. Judy, second by Ms. Thomas. Is there any discussion? If there's no discussion, can I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Juby.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas. Ms. King.
Yes.
Ms. Morrison.
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes. Good work, President. Mr. Juby.
Before you give the report, I want to offer my congratulations to yourself and Mike and the other.
Thank you, Mr. Juby. Thank you. Guys, so much business. While I locate my board president's report, we will move on to our committee reports this evening. Do any of our board members have any committee reports that they would like to share? Ms. Thomas?
My first report will be our CVP report. On October 28th, before our regular board meetings, we hosted our all boards dinner. We were escorted to a small reception by CVCC ambassadors. Garfield Heights Senior, Dana did an amazing job. From the reception, we were seated in Valley Inn for an amazing 3-course dinner. The service and food was led by the CVCC Culinary Arts Program. We then learned more about the future of CVCC by our superintendent, Dave Mangus, and learned about the Medical Administrative Specialist Program. Our October CVCC Spotlight students from Garfield Heights, Ms. Sophia Liaison, spoke to the group about her achievements in the program. At our board meeting, CVCC received recognition from our state auditor after a tour of our facilities and learning areas. Our cosmetology school is now open to taking appointments for haircuts. Check our website for more details. Lastly, our long-anticipated storage facility is well underway. Our November Student Connection highlighted Tania Walford, a junior in the Health Careers Program. She also runs cross-country and track, as well as plays basketball. Congratulations to Tania and keep up the great work. My second report is student activities. Short student activities report today. Our winter sports practices and scrimmages have all started. The number of participants have increased in all of our winter sports. Major purchases include boys and girls basketball, practice basketball jerseys, high school and middle school scorebooks and game day supplies, wrestling mat, tape, and wrestling headgear. My last report is the legislative committee report. We met on October 19th. Majority of our meeting, we covered the Heart and Soul Project, which is a project that we will undertake. And we are very excited about more details to come. We also talked about OSBA legislative updates and scheduling talks with legislators. President Daniels, Mr. Hanky, do you all have any additions to that report?
This time, if I may, generally, the community elected collective, please keep an eye on legislation. The Ohio Assembly is in session right now. We have to search for contact me or one of the board members about legislation or something like that. The legislative committee is not. Thank you.
Any other reports?
Madam Chair, I have 2 reports. My first report is the Strategic Plan Committee report. The Strategic Plan Committee met on November 4th to get an update on the creation of action items and an update on outcomes of several action items. The district will be utilizing the DESA screening tool to assess the social and emotional competencies of students. This will be used as part of the multi-tiered system of support for our scholars. TDA has completed their assessment of the middle school and will be sharing the findings with the school board at our November meeting. Our district attendance rate is improving. The district was also awarded $404,000 over 5 years. It's a grant from the U.S. Department of Education in collaboration with the Educational Service Center of Cuyahoga County for the recruitment, retention, and promotion of teachers of color and to improve instructional practices throughout the district. I'm sure Mr. Hanky will be talking in a little more detail about that. This aligns with our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic goal. The cabinet continues to add action items and update established action items. A full report to the update to the Board of Education will occur at the December meeting. I also have a Garfield Heights City Liaison report. Congratulations to Mayor-elect Matt Burt and the newly elected and sworn-in members of council. November 7th, 2021 was the first council meeting with the newly seated council. Tom Vaughn, Ward 7, was elected as council president, and Jason Blake, Ward 5, was named president pro tem. On November 15th, the city will have a public hearing at 6 o'clock at the Civic Center to discuss projects to be funded with block development grant and community supplemental grant money. On November 17th, the city will host a night out with first responders at Garfield Heights Fire Station number 1. On the same evening at 7 p.m., the Planning Commission will meet. At 7:30, the Zoning Boards of Appeals will meet. On November 21st, the tree lighting ceremony will occur at the Civic Center. Mayor-elect Burke will be sworn in, and there will be a ceremonial swearing in of city council members. The next regularly scheduled city council meeting is on Monday, November 22nd at 7 p.m. in council chambers. That concludes my report, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. King. Is there any other reports? Our report on our policy committee. On October 29, 2021, the policy committee met to discuss our policy administrator. Mr. Hankey, Mr. Pat, Mr. Sluka, and Ms. Riseland, and myself were in attendance. And Neola representative Jeff Patterson presented Neola's policy administration services and how they can benefit the Garfield Heights City School District. The policy committee agreed to make a recommendation to the board to consider Neola as the policy administrator for our district based upon the presentation and the district needs. The policy committee has invited Mr. Patterson to make a presentation to the Board of Education at our December work session. That concludes my report. Is there any questions? Are there any more reports this evening? If there's no more reports, I will give my board president's report. Thank you all for your participation in tonight's meeting. I would like to begin my report by providing a wonderful spotlight on the service-oriented and character-building activities of the members of the National Honor Society at Garfield Heights High School. Without a doubt, you are exemplifying a future-ready mindset by thinking about future generations with your recent actions to plant 65 trees in our metro parks. On Friday, November 5th, these hardworking members of the National Honor Society from Garfield Heights School provided some charitable help in Dunham Park, demonstrating service to their community, which is one of the 4 pillars upheld by the National Honor Society. The trees themselves were a part of a larger donation to the metro parks, but the students used their hard work and labor to heal their specimens into the parkland so that they can be enjoyed for generations to come. The Metro Park staff was so impressed by our students that they asked if they could even videotape the work of our Garfield Heights high schoolers in order to use as a training guide for future planners. Special thanks goes out to advisor Joni Wanderstock for her leadership of our National Honor Society students, with additional gratitude to Superintendent Hankey, Ms. Hanger, Brenda Benz, Carrie Burgos, and Faith Conover. Way to go. I would like to acknowledge the numerous students of the Garfield Heights City School District that achieved honor and merit roll this first quarter of academics. These scholars' hard work and dedication exemplifies our district commitment to providing a premier education to all students. High achievement is attributed to our amazing educators, ensuring that students achieve at their fullest potential. This affirms that students can and do achieve in our district each and every day. The work of the Garfield Heights City Schools over the last several years to enhance and elevate the significance of diversity, equity, and inclusion was greatly affirmed with the recent news that our district will receive $404,000 in funding from the U.S. Department of Education for the recruitment and retention of African-American teachers over the next 5 years. This funding directly correlates to the revised strategic plan that was adopted within the last 18 months in several sections that address these matters. First, one of 4 invaluable core beliefs outlined in the plan is that, and I quote, diversity of people, experience, and perspective defines our schools. Next, in our portrait of a graduate, the first pillar of being socially and emotionally aware states that our graduates will, quote, welcome everyone, regardless of race, gender, ethnicity, or orientation. In our strategic priorities and objectives, diversity, equity, and inclusion is one of 5 important areas of focus that the Garfield Heights City Schools will pursue over the next 3 to 5 years. All of this is in our strategic plan. I encourage the community to read as it continues to become more and more of a way of life in our district. These organizational values rest upon the real work being done by our Equity Task Force and aligns with the Board of Education's equity statement for the district. We thank all the champions of diversity in the district, including the members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Hankey, Yolanda Hamilton, Gina Wilson, and others who continue to engage our community with proper educational opportunities. We thank the U.S. Department of Education for this funding, and we attest that it will appropriately be dispersed and distributed to attract, retain, nurture, and grow instructors and educators of color to help our students learn and grow in the coming years. Thank you once again. In conclusion, with Thanksgiving approaching, I want to take the opportunity to reflect on the many things we must be thankful for. I am thankful for the community, the opportunity to represent the students, teachers, staff, and community here at this table with my fellow board members. I am thankful for change that produces hope and hope that creates faith in all students achieving in the Garfield Heights City School District. This concludes my report. Is there any questions this evening regarding my report? If there's no questions, we're going to move to our presentation, and I would like to turn the meeting over to Mr. Hankey at this time.
At this time, we get the presentations tonight. The first one, we're obviously here at Garfield Heights Middle School, and as such, we're going to have
so I don't have to yell. As such, we're going to have a middle school presentation and a learning center update, which is also housed at the school.
Good evening.
Good evening. I want to thank Board President Daniels and the rest of the board members for coming tonight. The folks from the board office, my administrative team, and community members for showing up tonight. Greatly appreciated. We might be turning this bank of lights off, depending on if we can see the pictures in a second here. That'll be better for later. Thank you. Here at the middle school, I want to take through the day in the life of the middle school and some of the things that we're doing at the middle school. So you kind of get an idea of what we go through on a daily basis and some of the things that we put in place for our students here at the middle school and for our staff. At the middle school, we're moving forward together. That's kind of the district motto, and that's what we've assumed here at the middle school as well. Our big three at the middle school are being safe, being respectful, and being responsible. Now, there's been some challenges, being remote for so many months, 18 months, coming back into the schools, learning school again. It's something that all of our students are learning again, and we're getting there, so that's a good thing. What I'm going to show you is a piece of data that we look at. Every day we look at data at the middle school. I think it's important to look at data, but more importantly, how do we use that data? So I'm going to show you some data here now so that you can see what we're looking at. Then I'm going to show you how we use that data on a day-to-day basis. This is our SWIS data, which stands for School-Wide Information System. What I'm showing you here is when we gather referrals on our students, it's behavior information. It shows us some of the behaviors our students have, how they can grow, what we can do for them to support them. So some of the things that we can see by our SWIS data are referrals by location. You'll see here, classroom referrals are the #1 place that referrals are written. So misbehaviors in the classroom are at the top, which is probably every building in our district. Any building really anywhere would be classroom behaviors. Hallway would be second, cafeteria, bus referrals, things like that. We can also look at problems by problem behavior. So what are the infractions that we're seeing here at the middle school? So you have things like targeting, bullying, inappropriate language, disrespect, disruptions. We can look at that data and really drill it down to see what's going on in our school. The next slide shows us referrals by grade level, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade up until now. And then the average referrals per day. So October, we had 11 referrals per day on average. This last piece of data shows us our students with referrals in the building. So there's some celebrations here, obviously. We have almost 75% of our students have no referrals to this point. So that's a great thing to see, that 75% of our kids are making great choices every day. Another 15% only have 1 referral. This is middle school. Okay, they're going to have an issue here and there, and we work through it, obviously. So about 90% of our students have between 0 or 1 referral, which is a great number. We're very happy to see that. Where we start looking, and we start looking a little deeper, is the 2 to 5 referrals and the 6+ referrals. You see that's about 10% of our students. So 10% of our students we're working with through PBIS, Tier 2, Tier 3, tying that in to see how can we support them better. Because those are the students we really need to reach so that they float over to this green section over here. Because that's where we want them to be, obviously, over in the green. So it's okay that they're having some issues, but we're working with them to get through where they need to be. Now, how do we use this data on a daily basis? There's really three approaches here. You can either change the systems in place, which we've done. You can change your student supports, and you can change your teacher supports. I'm going to talk about all 3 of those things now. The first thing we've done is we've adjusted our arrival to school because we're having a lot of issues in the morning when students arrive to school, coming in the hallways, just not getting into the classroom on time because there's a lot of commotion. There's 850 kids almost trying to get in this building. So what we did is we adjusted so that 6th graders enter at 7:10 in the morning. They're the first ones in. They enter this cafeteria right here. 7th and 8th graders coming in at 7:20. The 7th graders come in door B. 8th graders come in door C. All doors are monitored by security, administration, or teachers. They get their breakfast. They head right to their classrooms. So you'll see the 6th graders in this picture eat their breakfast right there, supervised by our guidance counselors. And then 7th and 8th graders get their breakfast. They go right to their classrooms, their lockers, and their classrooms. That way they're ready to start by 7:30. Now, another big transition for us this year was when we got to school, typical schedule for a school would be everybody's moving at the same time. So 1 bell, after first period, everybody's moving. We quickly realized our kids needed to slow down because there was a lot going on. There's a lot of 18 months of pent-up frustration, social media, things like that we're trying to combat. So we said we're going to slow it down. So we put 3 different transition times in place for our students. We have a 6th grade dismissal, a 7th grade dismissal, 8th grade dismissal between classes. That way our kids are only in the hallway by their grade level. So every 3 minutes at the end of the first period, the 6th graders move, hallways are clear for a minute, then the 7th graders move, hallways are clear for a minute, then the 8th graders move, then the hallways are clear completely. Then that rotates back and forth throughout the day depending on lunch periods and things like that. This has greatly helped our hallway behaviors because we can supervise everybody much better. We always have all of our teachers in the hallways, if they're not in a class or they're greeting their students at the door. We have every administrator, counselor, security guard, intervention managers. We're all in the hallway to support our students. So when we're able to see 250 to 270 kids instead of 800 at once, it makes it much easier. We also have 3 different lunch periods. So we have a 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. And we've assigned them by table. So the table that you see numbers on here, a group of students at each table based on their team. So they know their students, and then the teachers, for the most part, the teachers are in here every lunch period. So we have no less than 15 adults in the cafeteria at any time supervising our students. So the students enter, they sit down, and then Mr. Johnson will dismiss them up table by table to get their lunches. And then they sit back down, and then the nice part is, the teacher that has them to the next class, they walk them back to class. So we dismiss one teacher at a time, so they're getting back to the classroom safely. Now, dismissal. Dismissal was a challenge because, again, you have 850 students leaving the building at once. And it creates a dangerous situation because you have a lot of walkers now, you have some buses, you have a lot of car riders, then you have siblings that go over to Maple Leaf to pick up their brothers or sisters to take them home. There was a lot of issues after school, there were some issues on the buses, so we wanted to alleviate that. So this is the last system we changed in place. The first thing we did is starting at 2:07, we dismissed the bus riders first. The bus riders leave, they head to the buses, we clear them out, the buses leave, they take off, so that they're gone and everyone else is safe in the building. Next, we dismiss the car riders. They go out front, they get in their cars and they leave. The walkers go next. That way they're not competing with the buses or the cars. And then finally, our Maple Leaf siblings that are here, they stay in our building in 3 different rooms, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade. And when we're ready, when Maple Leaf starts dismissing, Miss Rizzi next door, we start sending them over. And then we have myself, my administrative team, and our security guards over there to support them over there. So our kids are supervised until they're with their siblings leaving. Now, we changed the systems of the building. How do we support our students? There are many things that we do, okay? Yes, there were some referrals. We also write positive referrals. So when a teacher sees a student being safe, respectful, responsible, they write a positive referral. So everything's not always negative, they're being rewarded. So that almost 90% of students that are doing the right thing are also recognized. Positive referrals. Again, we put it on social media so that people see them. Our teachers put it on our websites so that it's out there. The second thing that we do is our Stay in the Game campaign through the Cleveland Browns. We look for the students that have perfect attendance. We bring them down, give them the t-shirt, we recognize them, put them on the announcements, because it's important that we're in school learning every day. Students need to be involved at the middle school level to stay occupied, to stay out of trouble, to stay focused on learning. We have a lot of things here that we're currently doing or putting in place that's going to help us with that. Fall sports already finished up, very good. We had soccer, cheerleading, cross country, volleyball, and football. All the seasons went very well. The student athletes did a great job. We currently have started boys basketball. We're 2 games in, we're 2-0. Wrestling started today. Girls basketball starts in the winter. Then cheerleading goes. Cheerleading is doing just home events per the league rules. And our drill team will also join the girls in the winter as well. Every week we post our schedule out for athletics. That goes out online on Facebook, the website. Now, recently, the last 3 weeks, we got a chess club here at the middle school. Once a week, they're meeting with Mr. Lawrenson. They're doing a great job. They've had between 15 and 20 students every Wednesday doing chess club. That's that top picture there. We also have Campus Life Boys Group, which is by Mr. Norman Leonard. Mr. Norman Leonard comes in here once a week as well to work with some of our boys on things like leadership, things that can help them grow as better people So he sits with them during lunch, he gets some lunch, they sit and talk, they have good conversations. And actually, last week, Mr. Leonard took a few of our students to the Cavs game right there. Another program that we're bringing in, starting November 29th, the week after Thanksgiving, is Queen I Am. Queen I Am was a successful summer school program from this past summer. They believe that self-love and empowerment are important for our girls. So that's what they're gonna be focused on when we bring them in. They were here last week doing some recruiting, talking to some girls about what we got going on here for that program. We also offer a lot of outside counseling services. So for our students that are at tier 2, tier 3, that 10% we're looking at, we try to hook it up with outside agencies like Applewood, Heart to Heart, Guidestone, Everwell, Beachbrook, because it's important that if we can't get them supports here, we find them supports other places. And Gina Wilson's done a great job of getting those people involved. Our counselors have, and our teachers recommending them have done a great job of making sure those people are involved. Drama Club has really taken off this year. Drama Club used to be one group of students. It's now on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's 2 separate groups of students of between 25 and 30 each day, different kids. Bucket Drummers is for Mr. Balaika, so that's just students for the band, just doing a different activity, using musical buckets to drum. Our counselors, our school counselors also run a boys group and a girls group where they deal with stress, relationships, anger management. That was our girls group this week, just doing a petal flower that shows some of their strengths, where they want to work on, things like that. And the girls had a really good time going through that whole process. We always do mediations at our school, whether it's with Mr. Johnson, our conflict mediator, or other people in the building, whether it's our regular counselors or administration. If a student's in a verbal altercation, a physical altercation, we're going to talk to them, figure out what's going on, and give them the support they need. Finally, the last organization, which we talked about earlier, was Reading Ram. Reading Ram was here last week as well, starting to promote what they're doing so that we can get another program in here. They were another program for the summer that was very successful. Their mission is to improve school culture, academics, and the focus on SEL component that we need so greatly here at the middle school. Now, how do we support our teachers as well? That's another important aspect of this. Some of the things we do here, we have a lot of new teachers in the middle school. We're working very hard, as are all the teachers. We have new teacher meetings at least once a month with those 14 teachers. We just talk about some of the things that they're seeing, how to handle it, what are they doing differently, how we can support them. We also talk about, we have ELA MAP talk meetings. So MAP is a huge focus in our district. So for example, today we met with the 6th grade math department after school. We just talked about what's going on, celebrating some of the successes, looking at some of the weaknesses to see how we can help them and grow our students. And that's just at the office right there with the PBIS monthly meetings for tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 with our team of teachers. TBT meetings, BLT meetings, staff meetings, and general PD. So this is our meeting dates for the school year: staff meetings, BLT, PBIS, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Communicating with parents for us is very big here at the middle school. We do it in many ways. We all have a team website. So you'll see if you go to the website for the school, anybody can access any of our teams. There's the teacher's information, what they're doing on a daily basis, how to get in contact with them. I'm constantly sending remind messages out. Once a month, my Bulldog Bark newsletter goes out just to inform the community about what we're doing in the middle school, whether it's sports, academic updates, changes in procedures like we did rival dismissal, things like that. We also send parent emails through Blackboard as well. Now, the last thing that we put in place that really touches on changing the systems in our school, supporting our students and supporting our teachers, is a new program we started in the last 2 weeks called the Carey School Community. The Carey School Community is designed to help students become caring, responsible members of their school communities, help them grow into principled and skilled citizens in a democratic society. The purpose of the program is to build caring relationships with and among students, teach social skills, create calm learning environments, and help students acquire self-discipline in more appropriate ways. Now, what I like about this program, it touches on all the CASTLE competencies up there. So self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. Our students every day now, for about 40 minutes, meet with their team, with their teacher and a group of students. And they get to learn every week something new about how to become part of a community, how to do the right thing on a daily basis. So some of the topics we cover: understanding your emotions, kindness, appreciating diversity, resolving conflicts, taking responsibility for your actions. And you can see here, here's our calendar for the year. We have every week lined up for our teachers. So you go to December. So December, when we return from break, we're taking responsibility for your actions. Then we have making things right, understanding your emotions, developing empathy. Okay, and it's nice because 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade are all doing it, but it's all geared to the particular grade level. So while everybody's working on empathy, it's going to look a little different for 6th versus 7th versus 8th. So it's very nice because it ties in nice as we're all on the same page, doing activities that revolve around what students need. The online component to this, when the teachers are looking at topic weeks, for example, they click on, okay, she clicked on appreciating diversity. So it's very simple. When you scroll through, it tells you the social development focus for the week, before the week, what the teacher has to prepare. And then every day, here's your Monday activity. It tells you what you're doing. You can maybe print some stuff out, do an activity, get students in groups, because there's a lot of partner work, turning and talking, things like that. Can you go back one page, please? There's also an assessment component to this, because we got to know how the program is working, obviously. So the SEL assessment, it tells you how to do that every week. So we're gathering that data to see the effectiveness of the program as well. And we're also doing our own research on it. Okay. And then if you go, you just keep scrolling through. There's Tuesday, so it shows you what you're doing on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So there's also a home connection activity piece where at some point, when we get a little further in, the students will start bringing the activity home for the week to do with the family, so that we get the feedback from them and they can report back to us as well. So we connect full circle. Why do we choose CSC? For a few reasons. One is research-based and supported through numerous studies. It's committed to a focus on middle-level SEL. Not too many programs have a strict focus on 6th, 7th, and 8th grade SEL. Typically, it's elementary focus. It's CASTL supported, which is the Collaborative for Academic and Social Emotional Learning, which is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, national organization in the country focused on SEL. The communication from this company was very good. It constantly met with myself and some of the other members of the board office and my team, and they continue to talk to us when we need them. We reach out to them, they get back to us right away. When we look at all the different topics, it fits what our students need. And that's what's important to me, that our students are getting what they need. Any questions?
I do have a question. Are we tracking the positive referrals that you talked about? Are we tracking those as well in terms of numbers?
Mr. Fleetwood.
Yeah, we are tracking those through using Google Forms.
Okay.
So every time a student gets a positive referral, the teacher puts their name in a Google form and it collects all the names.
Okay, because it would just be interesting to also see how many of our scholars are receiving those positive referrals as well.
Absolutely.
And we will see that increase as we see those not so good referrals decrease.
Absolutely.
And then also just a comment, I'm interested in an update on those not so good referral data after we've been able to see CSC for several months. I know we're a couple of weeks in. So
Sure, and
next semester.
And that was one of the biggest things that we saw when they're looking at the different districts that have used this consistently for a number of years. Large districts like San Francisco and small districts, they saw a great decrease in the amount of referrals being written. And that's what we're hoping for here as well, because we've seen great things already in the first week and a half. We're seeing, when we walk into classrooms, teachers checking in students' emotions every day, where they are choosing their emotion they feel, then they're writing about why they feel that way for the day, just so they can just talk a little bit. Every day, the students are greeting each other. They get in the circle and they'll either throw a ball, they'll say hi, they'll throw a ball to somebody, just so they interact with different people every day. And then every week they have a different partner. So when I've been in the room, they're working really well, people they've never worked with, and that's important. You're welcome. Any other questions?
Just having worked in this building before, listening to your presentation was very exciting. I'm sure that the changes that you have made have shown in behavior. When were the time transitions made, the arrivals and the bill schedules?
I would say maybe a month and a half, about a month and a half in, is that about right? About a month and a half in across the board. Yeah, and so it's, it's worked out well because we have no bells now at all in the middle of the day, because otherwise we have 3 different bells each period, which would interrupt all the classes, and the teachers transition them flawlessly. So it's worked very well. And I appreciate your feedback. Anybody else?
Is there any other questions of Mr. Forney? Mr. Forney, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation today. I'm very excited about just even your leadership and understanding that it's a necessity for some systems to change. Trying to get our students coming back, especially from the pandemic. Once you've seen that they were not, it was not benefiting our students nor our school culture, which impacts education within the building, that we were able to kind of look and see what can we do differently. So I appreciate your leadership in that piece. I'm very excited about seeing the culture change and just bringing out the best in our students in our district. Also appreciate you sharing those positive referrals that you just didn't share the data of the things that we need to work on, but you did also share the things that our scholars are very successful in. And I appreciate you guys taking that time out to acknowledge our scholars that work very hard every day to follow our school culture and our expectations so that they can be successful. I do have a student here in the middle school, and he's doing great. And he's also said he's noticed some things that's been calming down a little bit. So there's some work that is actually happening in this district. So thank you both for your leadership. And I'm not sure if you, because right now we have some new leadership in the middle school. So Mr. Ford, you're a new principal. Who's the team, if you can introduce?
Sure, this is my second year here. Ms. Jenkins was a teacher here. She's our newest assistant principal. We're happy to have her. Ms. Trainer is back there sitting there. She's our assistant principal for teaching and learning. And then Mr. Felino has been assistant principal here for 6-7 years now.
So thank you to the entire team, the educators, and even our students. They have to be able to respond to the things that you are presenting to them. So I appreciate that 90% that comes to school every day, ready to learn and be leaders for the other 10%. And I have faith that those numbers will begin to decrease with the things that you guys have set in place. So thank you for your presentation this evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Hanky.
Thanks for being short and sweet, Mr. Ford.
Oh, you're
Good evening, members of the board, President Daniels, Mr. Hankey, Mr. Patton, Mr. Stuka. Tonight, just want to talk briefly, because I know some of the board members actually know, want to talk briefly about what the Learning Center actually is, the program here at Garfield City Schools. We've been in the district now, currently it's our 14th year. 14 years since St. Jackson was the principal when we first developed the program. This flyer just kind of did look, this is actually under construction right now because we're gonna add some things to it. We're gonna put a different kind of criteria to actually how students are put in the Garfield Learning Center. But there are 4 basic components to the Learning Center. We service grades, we educate grades 8 through 12. Our 8th graders are actually selected by a 7th grade team with the administrative team of the middle school and myself. It's kind of going by like maybe low math scores, low grades in year 7th grade year, and maybe some just with area action referrals may have been taken against the student. We have 20 actually 8th graders that are selected for the Learning Center program. Well, let me start back. The program runs from 7:30 to 2:15. Those 20 students that are selected get an opportunity to work in a smaller classroom setting because the classes top out at 10, so you have a teacher ratio of 1 to 10 for our students that are in the Learning Center. Those 20 students get an opportunity to get a little bit more individualized instruction because we also have intervention specialists that work with those students as well on the side of the program. The kids that are placed in the Learning Center 8th grade get the same opportunities as the students in the middle school, so they do get an opportunity to play sports and any extra activities. So one thing that's different is that the fact that they're where they're actually taking their classes at in the Learning Center outside of that. Everything else is the same. Breakfast, lunch, and all that. So it's not like it's a punitive thing for them being done. We just recognize they might need a little bit more help to get them prepared for high school. Our high school component, which is a little different than the middle school, is basically kind of set up for a credit recovery program. We do have 20 straight 9th graders that get an opportunity to get placed in the program. We might have had a struggling year in 8th grade. Same thing, could have been low test scores, could have been some low attendance. Could have been some disciplinary actions. We want to make sure before we send them to the high school that they're prepared and ready for that big change, because we all know that the 9th grade year is the biggest and most important year in high school. Which brings us to the point where our 10th to 12th graders is kind of a credit recovery program for those students. Those students get an opportunity to come down to the Learning Center and recover credit they might have failed in the class that they took in years previous. Total number of students that actually placed in the Learning Center day program is 80. We have 20 8th grade, we have 60 high schoolers. The day is a little different for high school since we don't offer those kids lunch or study hall, but they do get their 5 core class. They get their 4 core class and then 1 elective, which is art or technology. And actually, even with the day being shorter, they get more actual class time with the teacher and learners than they actually do at the high school, because our classes are 1 hour long. Also with the high school, same thing with the teacher ratios, 1 to 10 students in the high school. With those students get an opportunity to get extra help, get individualized instruction from their teachers. There's also an intervention specialist that work with those students as well. On a limited basis, students can be tested with disciplinary action by our pupil services director. Once again, we're trying to make sure that kids know this is not punitive. This is something that can help them out as far as when they get behind in their classes. Another component to the Learning Center is our virtual learning academy, our VLA program, where students come to school from 1:30 to 3 o'clock. A lot of times those classes are taken on the computer. Kids can be placed in that program because they might be a part of CVC. It could be a part of the OWE work program. And some students actually have a better opportunity because they're working to get their coursework done when they get out of school or when they get off of work and they work and come to school for an hour and a half of the school day. I know it sounds a little short, but we do get a lot of kids that get a lot of work done in an hour and a half because they're actually working independently on the computer before they even get to school to come in and get the help from most teachers. The 4th component of the program is just students that work strictly from home. That could be a lot of different reasons. We do have some seniors that might be really close to graduation that might want to work a job and want to just do their work from home. Could be a medical reason, or whatever the case may be, working with the parent and actually figuring it out to what might be best for the student at that time. I'm going to give you guys a little breakdown of our numbers here. You can see it. Currently, right now, we have 18 8th graders that are in the program. We have 18 9th graders also that is in the program. Our 10th through 12th graders, we currently sit at 37 students. Out of those 37 students, we have a possible 31 graduates. So this year, go class of 2022. In our afternoon program, there are 33 students with 6 graduates, with 6 possible graduates for graduation in the year 2022. In our itinerary instruction, which is Ms. Wanderstock and Mrs. Ferguson, we also have 8 students that are working out there. We have 3 candidates for graduation with that out of those 8 students. And from going back to with the graduating class of this year in 2021, we have 41 students that were possible graduates. And we did actually graduate 23 of those students, with another 3 students that graduated in August of this year. When you look back, trying to go back over some of the years past, I got the numbers from actually 2020, where we had 36 graduates, 36 possible graduates. We had 18 graduates that actually graduated in that class. I put beside that as well, each year you can see the graduation rate. So I put that in there because I know we play a good part of our graduation rate from here in the district. With us getting those students out, it helps keep our graduation rate at least above 85% and close to 92% for the last, as you can see, the last maybe 4 years. So it went back to 2018. Wasn't as long as before. Anybody have any questions about the data? Just yes.
The middle school program or the high school program, pick one of the programs. Are they there for the entire year, or is there a point where they may transition back to their home school?
Most places are 40, but we have had students transition back at the semester end. If they came back, get their credits caught up, and they actually had a decent grade point average at that time. So we do let students transition back in the middle of school, but it has to be at semester. More questions?
I do have one question. If the Garfield Heights City School District did not provide this alternative to this group of students that was potentially at risk, where would they go, or what would they do? What will be their outcomes? Like, I know a lot of schools don't have things like the Learning Center. So prior to the Learning Center, did these students possibly become victims to dropping out? Like, what is this preventing?
It's definitely preventing the dropout rate. I would also say that it's assisting us in our graduation rate. Sometimes we have students that just don't do right in the bigger classroom setting. So it's preventing some of those kids that might have social emotional issues to come down there and work in a smaller classroom setting as well.
Thank you. Just part of our district strategic plan and even priorities, I just like that we have diverse educational pathways for our students to graduate. That it's just not a once, if you can't make it within our regular programming, I'm glad that we're able to provide our students with an alternative with Garfield Heights City School District educators and administrators overseeing it. That way we can ensure that our students are successful. So I do appreciate all the work that you are doing in this program and the impact that it's having on our district overall with student achievement and graduation rates. So thank you so much, Mr. Bradford and your team. Is any of your other team members this evening here?
No, they're not.
Okay, so I just wanted, if there was, I wanted to make sure that we acknowledged them. Is there any other questions? If there be no other questions, thank you so much this evening for your presentation.
Thank you.
I can put my laptop on.
President Daniels, members of the board, thank you so much for bearing with our 3 presentations. I wanted to, I wrote, President Daniels, members of the board, thank you so much for bearing with our three presentations. I wanted to, I wrote the apologies, Mr. Saluka was monitoring the YouTube feed for the board meeting, and that's what caused that. We have just solved the issue, but apologies. So as we came back from COVID into full classroom this year, one of the things, we knew that there were going to be many social emotional issues that we were going to have to address. One thing that educators throughout this state and national did not really foresee was the amount of physical issues that are happening with students and some of the depth and breadth of the issues that are happening. So I wrote the board a memorandum kind of outlining some of the steps that the district has taken to address these issues. And you saw a little bit from Mr. Ford. So today, Mr. Patton, Dr. Dupree, and I want to discuss the return from COVID, some of the challenges of the school climate we've seen, and how the district's addressing these challenges in a two-pronged approach. Upon the return of in-person learning in August, school climate and culture were definitely affected. Nationally, districts are facing challenges, including increased fighting among students, increased THC use among students, and a lot of issues driven by social media. Student disciplinary issues this year have been unprecedented, both here in Garfield Heights, as well as districts around the state and nation. And we have to remember that our students had not been in full in-person learning since March of 2020, when COVID hit and school districts shut down. We came back in a hybrid model last March, but our first full reopening was this fall. So the first prong of our approach was on safety and security. We posted for 3 additional full-time security positions. We filled one at the middle school, and we're writing back on some reports to fill the 2 at the high school. We did have some issues at our football games as well as other area schools, so we moved our kickoff times up into the afternoon. For the board's approval tonight, we also updated the school resource officer job description. The description isn't there for approval. The memorandum of understanding is. Winter indoor sports, we are looking to limit, as are 6 of the 7 Lake Erie League high schools, to 25% of capacity due to 2 issues. COVID, which unfortunately is not going away. And in fact, our COVID task force met today, and the infection rate in the county has plateaued. It's not going down. And some of the climate issues. I do want to turn it over to Mr. Patton. Just as one of Mr. Patton's one of our 2 assistant superintendents, and beyond being the human resources director, he also was the first to really implement and push forward the positive behavior intervention and support program that we're now recognized throughout the state on. And some of the new things that we're putting in place that Mr. Forting actually talked about a bit.
So as you know, Garfield Heights City Schools, all our 5 of our buildings have been recognized for our PBIS work, as well as the district award for PBIS last year as well. But part of that work is also involving us to understand the social emotional aspects that are happening in the buildings and also bringing programs on. So what we've done is, and I'm going to kind of jump around here in the past, is a few years ago, we brought our PACS program in. We brought it into the elementary setting. At this time, currently, even with our new staff, we have 100% of every teacher in our district in our elementary setting that has been trained in PACS. We continue to utilize and make sure reinforcing our vision boards and the way grading prizes and all the aspects of PACS each and every day in our buildings. We call it the kind of the meat of the program. Well, PBIS is the framework, but the PACS program, as well as the other programs that we've introduced in the district, are really the meat and help support our students and their social and emotional learning each and every day. Last year, we introduced the ripple effects at our high school. This is again another program that is geared towards our high school students. It is computer-based. They have time built in their day. We're working through with the school administration on that, but it is a program that allows us for various aspects of various programs, high school driven, to allow our students aspects of social emotional learning geared towards the high school level. And then again, Mr. Fording did a very nice job this afternoon or this evening talking about our collaborative classroom. Again, another program that is research-based, but again, driven towards our middle school students and providing them the supports. Again, these are all aspects of the work that we continue to do each and every day to provide the supports for our students going forward. All right, the last program, is Stay in the Game. Stay in the Game has been the initiative that was brought on by Ms. Gina Wilson. Throughout this entire school year, what we've done is we continue to meet as a district team, as well as the program through that are going into all the buildings. Again, looking at attendance data, focusing on our kindergarten, our 7th graders, and our 9th graders throughout the district. We continue to get support through with the Cleveland Browns, as well as providing different incentives to make sure that our students are staying in the game each and every day, increasing that attendance, and also being one of the districts in the state of Ohio that is part of this initiative. So again, another various program to continue to support what's happening for our students each and every day. Dr. Dupree.
Mr. President and board members, one of the things we started doing this year that has been very successful, very helpful, is that every single expulsion hearing, and unfortunately we do have some, there is an agency represented at the table to assist the parents and kids with whatever their issues are. It's been very successful because out of all of the hearings we've had this year, only one parent said no because she didn't want her daughter to have a consequence. One out of one. These agencies, they come to us for free. There are no strings attached. A parent is not mandated to choose any agency that comes to our hearings. They are there to help the families when kids come back to school. They help them get through this process of what do I do with her or him being off for a long period of time. I have to go to work and that kind of thing. The social emotional piece is huge for these kids. The Facebook, Instagram, text messages back and forth, it's constant. And frankly, some parents who come to our meetings mad at us, meaning the school district, they end up seeing that we can help them and their kids get through all this turmoil that these kids go through. Whenever a new agency comes into the district, I call them and I talk to them. When I have them come in, I ask Gina to help vet these people, to talk to them. What do you offer? What services can you give these parents if they don't have insurance? They are terrific in terms of helping us work through our problems with our young people and our parents. Any questions about that process?
I do have a question about the expulsion. So, is the rate of expulsions higher than normal this school year?
Yes, it is.
And so my question and even my concern about a high level of expulsions, I know that the behaviors that the students are experiencing, we are having a higher level of discipline issues, but throughout tonight in various presentations, it has been an acknowledgement that our students are returning to school at a deficit. So with them returning to school at a deficit, do we discipline them with the same expectations that we normally would discipline them, knowing that they are at extreme deficit.
Yes, and here's the good news on that, Mr. Daniels. We have, I think there's only been one student this school year who has been put out of school for 80 school days. Most of the kids we have to expel end up in the learning center in one form or another. And when they're in the learning center, we let them and their parents know it's not a death sentence. We will look at their situations at semester break, and some of them are eligible to go right back to school. Did that answer that, Ms. Daniels?
So our students are still, so I guess my part, how I define expulsion is being removed from school and not having access to academics during the time as discipline. But we know that the heightened discipline issues is correlated with not being in school. So 80 days later, 40 days later, are we gonna have an influx of students that are gonna be returning with the same barriers? So we put them at the same deficit. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm just concerned that I just don't want us to add to the deficit. I don't wanna discipline them at our normal expectations. We do not, I mean, this is an educational institution. We are here to make sure that our students are safe and ready to learn every day. So I absolutely do not condone the fighting. I do not condone the breaking of school rules. But I just want to make sure that we're not aggressively expelling the students, trying to get a handle on the behavior issues, and are there some other restorative practices that we can do versus expulsions? And I do appreciate you adding the agencies into the mix, but I just want to make sure learning loss and that we're not adding, and we're being more restorative.
Gordon, are we treating the expulsion hearings the same as we did in the past?
They're a little bit different, Mr. Juby, if I can answer your question and Mrs. Daniels at the same time. We're trying, frankly, this year, we have very few kids that we put off for 80 days. And those who do get put out, when they're in the learning center, they are still working on the outside with these agencies. Social, emotional, education, and behavior, which are, I think, Ms. Daniels, two of the deficits you mentioned. We have that covered because they're still in school. We didn't remove them from the roles. That's why they're still able to get their work.
Thank you, Dr. Freed. That did answer my question.
Anyone else?
Is there any other questions?
Excuse me, President Dales, a couple other things that we're adding, when you mentioned about alternatives, and also making sure we're not broadening the deficit is, our online virtual academy and our learning center there, but we are exploring, and in fact, we met as a cabinet this morning, a couple of other programs, one electronic and one in person that we may be able to bring to the district. Don't want to say too much about what those are because we're kind of in an exploratory phase right now. But the goal, as Dr. Dupree said, is to try to maintain an avenue for education, right, as we move forward with this. And, as I said, we're trying to be a little more proactive as this moves forward. When we came back, we were like, okay, what kind of plan do we need to put in place? And that's really what we're developing. And Mr. Juby.
Yeah, this goes back to your other safety and security.
Yes.
You had said we're gonna do the 25% capacity.
Yes.
How is that gonna affect the relation to last week at 5?
Yeah, Mr. Juby, we are also in the statement I put out on the web, we'll work with some families if they have some issues, if they need to bring some more folks to the game. But we want to try to standards at 300 people in the games for COVID in school. You're welcome.
I do appreciate some programs like Collaborative Classroom, things that I think is going to support our district in the PBIS work that we have seen being successful throughout the district. And tonight I learned about the ripple effect. So I do appreciate that we do have some things in place within the district just to support school district. And I do want to make sure that it's clear that although I have some concerns, I absolutely do not condone the poor behavior of school that interrupts education in the district. It impacts just not the student that is, like Mr. Ford shared today, you know, that 10% also impacts that 90% having access to the full opportunity of education for every single minute of the school day that they're entitled to. And so disruptions disrupt education and impacts achievement. So I absolutely don't condone it, but I just do have faith in our student body. And as these supports that you guys have put in place come along, that we can see an improvement in school culture and climate so that our students can have full access to the great education that is provided to them here in the Garfield Heights City School District. Just one last question about school culture climate. Is there a particular building that was having the most issues with, like, is it a particular building?
Yes, quite frankly, and again, not that it's great comfort, but it is happening regionally. It's at our high school. However, if you walk into our high school, anyone here on a day-to-day basis, you'll see a calm environment. But there has been some issues that pop up very quickly. And so you're looking at the root cause, right? You treat symptoms, I'd say, with security, but you look at the like ripple effects and looking at social emotional support for students to figure out why these things are happening is the long-term kind of view of it. I will say this though, President Daniels, I believe our buildings are safe and secure. When we do have issues, they're responded to quickly. And also, as we said, we're then trying to get students that are involved supports.
Thank you. Is there any other questions, Mr. MP, Mr. Patton, or Dr. Dupree?
Let me do my last slide, President Daniels. I apologize. I wanted to leave a little bit positive here. We want to be proactive. We're trying to become that premier school district, and we want our students and families to have a first-class experience. Everyone deserves that. And I thank President Daniels. I thank you and the board for taking the time tonight.
Thank you.
President Daniels, I'm still up here. Our third presentation tonight is for Mr. Corey. I would like to introduce him because he is new this year. You know, if you spoke, well, you've spoken to board meetings before, but not necessarily as staff. Mr. Corey comes to us from the ESC of Northeast Ohio. He is our data and accountability coordinator. Part of our strategic plan is to become a data-driven institution. And already, I believe, his addition to our staff, along with the teaching and learning department, with Gina Bajer, Mrs. Reisman, and Mrs. Costa, and Mrs. Saxton, they've done a good job pivoting and going deeper in the data role. So, Mr. Corey?
Thank you, Mr. Hankey. President Daniels, the board, thank you for your time. And seeing as how I'm the fourth one to present, I will try to keep this very straightforward to the point, of course, giving time for any questions that you might have. One of the things that I wanted to focus on for my presentation this evening was to really look at data as it surrounds students, because sometimes when you look at data, we can get lost in the numbers and get detached from what actually happens in the classroom. So I wanted to put this graphic up as a reminder that everything that we do is in the service of students, individual students, that every number is connected to an individual, and that we are working for each individual student's success during their time with us at Garfield Heights City Schools. I put up here just 6 sources of data that we are looking at. I'm going to focus some of my time on the academic side, but really there is a suite of data that we look at over the course of a student's academic career that gives us a picture as far as how to better serve that student. I will say this though, before I move forward, is that numbers always lag performance. So anytime you look at a number, you're looking at something that happened in the past. Sometimes that's the distant past, sometimes that's the very recent past. So we try to take that into account when we're setting goals and we're working with teachers and working with administrators as far as how we can best serve students. So one area is of course math, and math, we've heard this word a lot, and I'm just going to take you just very briefly through some of the important work that we do with math. So first, when we look at math data, MAP stands for Measure of Academic Progress. And we are measuring reading and math scores in grades K through 8. In high school, we don't look at it so much as grade band as we do content area. So in high school, we look at algebra, geometry, English 9, and English 10. Students are assessed on the computer. There are 3 testing sessions. We finished up our first testing session at the end of October. And we will do another one in the winter after we return from break, and then of course in the spring. Then students will they take these tests in familiar environments because we want to reduce the noise when we measure students. So we don't want to test students' nerves or by testing them in unfamiliar environments. We don't get them. We want them in familiar settings. This is the key behind math, is that we're measuring growth. We want to measure a student's performance over the course of time because that helps us to triangulate how we can best serve that student in the classroom. So it's really providing us a snapshot as far as where students are at the time of the assessment. And then as we take more and more assessments through the school year and then from year to year, it gives us a much bigger picture as far as where each individual student, class, grade level, and the district are as a whole. The assessment provides educators with data that's aligned to the standards. That's of course very important. One of the things that we've seen is that students are behind where they should be with respect to grade level standards. The COVID pandemic has had certainly an impact on that. So we want to make sure that we're providing them with some standards level instruction that's strongly correlated with our state assessments. The math data includes a RIT score, just a fancy word for a scaled score that measures growth. It gives us an idea as far as percentile ranges. We'll talk about that in a moment. That also provides us information where we can focus and concentrate our best efforts for both grade level growth and closing the gap. So here is where the district currently is with respect to math. And you'll see that we have a majority of our students in many cases in the lowest quintile, below the 21st percentile. I will say this, is that the math assessment is based on normed data with hundreds of thousands of students. But that data came prior to the pandemic. So what we're doing with the MAP assessment is that students who took the assessment to be placed in this percentile are being compared to pre-pandemic standards. So it gives a little bit of perspective as far as where students are. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't help these students. We can and we are, but we use other sources of data that help us to triangulate, figure out exactly why students are performing the way they are. One highlight that I would like to mention, for example, kindergarten. Our incoming kindergarten students are much more spread out among the higher percentiles. That's good news, certainly. And of course, these students that fall in these upper percentiles, these are being, again, compared to pre-pandemic norms, which means these students are really doing a marvelous job. Same for reading. Reading's a little bit higher. A lot of the district's work over the past few years has been on literacy and reading, and you can see that those continue to be at play. We still see more students in the lowest quintile than we would like to, but we certainly have a much more even distribution throughout the grade levels. So what do we do with this information? What does this look like with respect to grade level work with administrators and teachers? So here's an example of a grade level report. What this can show us, this is a grade level report in reading. So what this allows us to do is this allows us to see students' relative strengths and weaknesses across these key instructional areas, which align with standards. With this information, we can see the relative distribution of where students fall. This is a grade level report. We can also look at this at the classroom level, but this is big picture. Where are big strengths, big weaknesses from a zoomed out perspective? We then zoom in a little bit. This is a classroom level report. These are fictitious students' names. They're just first names, but they're not Garfield High students. This comes from their training materials. But this says, okay, so let's zoom in on these individual instructional areas and see where students fall as individuals across the learning continuum. So now we're starting to put students' names with numbers, and those numbers are attached to specific instructional components that we can focus in on the classroom. So then we move to something called the Learning Continuum, and this is something that I've been working with building administrators, been working with teachers too. Okay, so it's one thing to say, how do you work on vocabulary or literary text? What the Learning Continuum does is it provides teachers specific areas of focus aligned with standards based on each individual student's needs. So this is a very interactive component. This is an actual mechanism on the MAP website that when teachers click on individual elements for instruction, it brings up areas that teachers can work with students and shows where students, here I blocked out the students' names, but you'll see the students' names over here on the right, the line saying, okay, these particular students could benefit from instruction in these specific areas based on their scores. Now, I will say there's always a huge caveat that goes with this, is we never base this on just one number. So we look at this, we look at other sources of data to help give us support as far as why students might be grouped in a certain way or working on a certain standard over the course of time. Another piece of information we look at is EBOS data, also known as value added, also known as the progress measure on the report card. Now, what the progress measure shows us is a little bit different. It also measures growth, but it measures where students fall with respect to other students of similar testing histories across the entire state of Ohio. And it says, did students maintain the same amount of growth as other students did in the state? So if students fall behind, we can begin to zoom in and look at, okay, why is that happening? And we can begin to diagnose some of those areas that are concerned. So here, this is our value-added report from this past spring. And remember when I said that numbers always lag performance. So this is based on our 2021, this past spring, last school year, that testing data. So what it does is it gives us information that can be very helpful. And this is some of the things that we're doing as a district, and I'm working with administrators on building capacity as far as how do we use this to actually affect instruction in the classroom. I will point out one awesome highlight. 7th grade math is in the light green, which means students that are in 7th grade last year in math maintain their level of growth with respect to other students throughout the state of Ohio, which is awesome. So as was mentioned earlier, we also have the Stay in the Game initiative. Being the data's guy, I get to have the enviable task of showing you the numbers. So let me show you some of those. So here we look at absenteeism rate. Now what I did is I took and I removed quarantine, I removed suspension, I removed anything where we're telling students to stay home. And we're looking at just excused and unexcused absences. In the month of August, September, we had a district-wide absenteeism rate of 10.1% or 10.2%. That fell in October. In other words, our attendance improved. Our absenteeism rate fell to 9.3%. By grade level in your packets, you can see this a little bit closer. But our attendance improved district-wide with the exception of kindergarten and high school. So high school, we saw a slight uptick. In kindergarten, we saw a slight uptick as far as absenteeism. But from grades 1 through 8, we had a decrease in absenteeism district-wide. And so this is certainly something that is a positive. Students coming to school is the best thing for students to stay for achievement. And certainly we have a lot of things going on with our Stay in the Game initiative, as well as school climate. But that's something that's certainly very positive. Some of the other things that I'm not showing you the data because I wanted to be concise. We also look at our state testing data. You saw information as far as the PBIS, the discipline data. We even use some software, like for example, Branching Minds is a software that's basically a decision-making software that combines multiple sources of data to make it easier on the user side to see how data fits together for decision-making purposes. So for example, we use something called a cadence, which is basically a measurement of reading skill and fluency. How does that fit in with math? How does that fit in with other areas? And Branching Minds is an example of how those can be combined to make sense of that for teachers and administrators. So, of course, we collect. Of course, we have to do things with the data. That's where I come in as part of an awesome team. We look at MAP scores. We look at state test results, a cadence, which I mentioned is about reading. So we're collecting and reviewing. These are just a very short list of some of the things we look at. We have a focus on professional development to build capacity, right? So it's the teaching the fish rather than giving the fish. So we can use this long term. We want to key in on those essential standards in reading and math. The data helps us to figure out what are those key standards students have to be successful to close that gap. We utilize that data collaboration to support students who are below grade level because we want to close that gap. And we want to have a focus on grade level instruction every single day. And that's a challenge. So there is time where teachers are scaffolding and building students up, but we want to have a focus on grade level instruction so students can be successful. And of course, we use a variety of different learning goals coming from a variety of different data places and SEL support, as you saw earlier today with a few of our other presentations. So we don't serve one student, we serve a lot of students. And so those students then combine, and one way that we can look at is maybe the state report card. Now, the state report card has a lot of information on it. This past year, we weren't receiving grades on this year's report card. And I'm not going to go into all 6 areas this evening, but I will say that this information always follows behind what we're doing currently. And so one of the things, of course, we look to this to give us information on how things performed in the past. And for example, graduation rate has continued to increase, which is excellent. But we will wait to see how this reflects what we're doing this school year, next school year. Any questions for me? Yes, ma'am. So it depends. So we actually get a report on how long students spend. Typically, students have as much time as they need. So sometimes we really aim for students to take about 40 minutes or so on the assessment, 40 minutes, 60 minutes in that zone. If they finish earlier, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be an indication maybe they're flipping through or they're not focusing on what's in front of them. But we get reports on that, so it helps us to keep that in the balance. And students want to do well by nature. They want to be successful. So actually, very few students do that. So about 40 minutes, I would say, is the average. Yes, ma'am.
Data that you provided us this evening, was that the fall 2021 data?
Yes, that was from October. This past October.
So that was the first one.
Yes.
I know last spring, I'm looking at, we expect our scholars to each year, maybe years ago, wherever they start. So when will we be able to have enough data to how many students are being
So that answer occurs over the course of time. So our next MAP assessment is going to be the most immediate, but it may not be the most complete or even accurate assessment growth. So from my perspective, I like to have multiple sources of data that inform give us our accurate picture as far as where we are. So I'd like to see after our spring, our third half assessment, and we get maybe our state test scores back. That's going to put us in a better spot to have a really clear picture of how well students actually performed this year.
Thank you, Mr. Corey, for your presentation this evening. It was very informative.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda this evening is our superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Daniels, members of the Board of Education. First of all, I'd like to thank our hosts, the middle school learning center tonight. One of the challenges you have, especially in a building that's a little older, is keeping it clean and very well presented. And I'd like to thank Mr. Forty and his whole team for making the building shine. That's great. I begin my report by sharing that Monday, November 22nd, and Tuesday, November 23rd, the week of Thanksgiving, the Garfield Heights City Schools will join several other nearby districts to have collaborative learning days from home on asynchronous assignments. Teachers will post work in Google Classroom and prepare students with assignments during this week, leading up to Thanksgiving break as well. On both of these days, the Garfield Heights City Schools staff will have professional development days with a distinct focus on safety and security in our schools, as well as collaborating to improve instruction. Once again, please note that Monday, November 22nd and Tuesday, November 23rd will be collaborative learning days where students will work asynchronously at home. We will be off from school Wednesday through Friday of that week as well for Thanksgiving break. The Garfield Heights City Schools will be extending its mask mandate through winter break until at least January 4th to ensure the full safety and security of the staff and students in our district. The decision to extend the mask mandate comes as a result of the continued work of the COVID-19 task force and their close analysis of data and trends in contemplating the needs of our school community. The Garfield Heights City Schools thanks the families in our community for their partnership in this effort, as the masking has unquestionably led to low infection rates in our buildings and the ability to keep learning in person fully intact. Thank you for your continued flexibility and understanding as we continue masking through winter break until at least January 4th, 2022. Another very important news, the Garfield Heights City Schools is excited to announce that it has become the recipient of a $404,000 grant from the United States Department of Education to support the district's diversity recruitment and retention efforts. Over the past several years, the district has become increasingly dedicated to implementing equitable practices in all aspects of our operations, as outlined in our strategic plan, and particularly to attract, retain, and promote teachers of color, and to improve instructional practices at all grade levels. The United States Department of Education recognized this, and we are extremely encouraged that our sustained and dynamic efforts in the Garfield Heights City Schools over the last several years to become the champions for diversity, equity, and inclusion have been affirmed by this grant and has led to this funding. This grant from the federal government for the Garfield Heights City Schools comes as part of a massive funding investment that the federal government is making through the Department of Education to public school districts throughout the country to affirm its commitment to educational equity. Specifically, this $404,000 grant will be awarded over the course of a 5-year window in partnership with the Educational Service Center of Northeast Ohio, and will be dispersed in periodic amounts beginning in 2022. There will be more come about the details of this grant over the next weeks. We want to express our deepest gratitude to the U.S. Department of Education. And again, as mentioned above, please remain on the lookout for more information about how this federal funding will assist us in addressing systemic issues in our district as we work to reduce the existing disparity of teachers of color in our district. Finally, a big shout out to our National Honor Society, who recently planted 65 trees as a way to help the metro parks and demonstrate the importance of the pillar of service. President Daniels, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Henke. Is there any questions regarding Mr. Henke's report? Mr. Juby?
Yeah. I understand you'll have a process to determine how the money is being spent.
Mr. Juby, Mr. Saluka and I have a budgeting meeting this week, or is it next week? Monday, with the ESC of Northeast Ohio. So the first thing we have to do is figure out exactly what we are allowed to spend the money on. All grants have those stipulations. And then through the budgeting process, that's going to give us a pathway forward and a development plan.
Well, that, as the plan is developed, will it require us to enter into any MOUs with any of the unions based upon how we plan to expand or utilize these funds? And it is dealing with staffing.
That's a possibility, Mrs. Davis, yes.
Thank you. Is there any other questions regarding Superintendent Hankey's report this evening? If there's no other questions, thank you for your report. Mr. Hankey, our next order of business this evening is remarks from the public regarding agenda items. And this evening, we do not have any remarks from the public regarding agenda items. We do have two regarding non-agenda items. So there's a place in the, on our agenda for those items later on in the meeting. Our next order of business this evening is the, yes. Can I have a motion? I mean, a second. That was moved by Mr. Juby and second by Ms. Thomas. Is there any discussion relative to the items on the floor?
I was just itching to jump in there about the 5-year forecast for President Daniels. Just a quick overview of the forecast. When we went over in more detail with the board's finance committee, but just to highlight a few areas of the forecast. Two main areas that impact the forecast this time is the fair school funding plan. The state changed when their biennial budget approved the fair school funding plan, and it has a significant impact on the forecast. And I put in there in the last page of that impact. Two caveats to the fair school funding plan is we received less state funding, foundation funding under the fair school funding plan this year because they did not fully fund it. But other caveat, you compare that with the direct payment of the community school ed choice tuition, the open enrollment, the Peterson scholarship, and the net effect of that, and I put it into a forecast overview, the net effect of that is the district still will see a increase of $1.9 million from the overall net effect of that. So that's the part of the forecast. And then the other thing is we will be receiving $7 million in ESSER funding this year, ESSER 2. And we have shifted over $1 million in salaries and benefits to the ESSER funding to save with the operating fund, those dollars. So what that means in the short term is that we have now have revenues that are exceeding expenditures, which allows us to build up on our ending balances. And for that, we will see that in 2022, 23, 24 with the forecast. And then what ends up happening though is in 2025, all those salaries and benefits come back into the operating fund as those ESSER grants go away. So you'll see in the forecast in 2025 where the revenue surplus exceeds the expenditure, revenue exceeds expenditures by almost 2.7 million because we bring that back in, those expenditures. And then we significantly see that in 2026. What this is saying though is that as we get closer to 2025, all things being equal, we need to start looking at how to mitigate that revenue shortfall. The other piece of this is, as I always say, is that the state and their fair school funding plan has put that in place. However, they only are funding 1/6 of that. It was a 6-year plan. They're only funding 1/6 of that this year and 1/6 of that next year. That's all they've obligated in the biennial budget. So there is no caveat in the state budget to carry out the fair school funding plan after 2 years. So they didn't want to obligate the legislature in that period of time after the 2-year period. The forecast is modeling that they will continue to fund the fair school funding plan. So that's the caveat there. A couple other highlight areas I wanted to make real quick is that the district did see an increase in their valuation, an 18% increase. It was a reappraisal here. So I'm sure the residents, when they got their tax bills, were a little bit probably, I don't want to say unexpected, but they probably did see an increase that was a little higher than what they normally see. Two pieces, two pieces of that, and I'm sure with that, I mean, the good news was your property value went up, so your home was worth more. The bad news, your taxes went up. But just be apprised if you see somebody on the street and they're complaining of that increase. The board did not see any of that. I mean, from the 18% reappraisal, the board saw only a $200,000 increase in revenue because of House Bill 920. So when the appraisals go down, you don't lose revenue, but when the appraisals go up, you don't gain revenue. Where those tax increases come from the other entities that have bills attached to your property, right? Go on to the county fiscal officer's website, you can see the breakdown. So we did not get any like big influx of money from the high reappraisal. It's good news on overall, because we do get that from the commercial side. However, we have seen a lot of commercial properties lately file for a reduction based on that new appraisal. So we will be probably dealing with that in the coming years. So but then the next thing is a reappraisal comes again in 3 years. I do put another increase in the forecast for that reappraisal. However, I do put in the forecast a drop in the valuation as they appeal some of those property values, mostly in the commercial side. I did give out, I gave you an overview. I apologize for some of the typos and stuff in there, basements, waste, and I should have had a second pair of eyes look at it, but I corrected it. I will send out a revised copy to you. You also have the actual forecast itself in a large summary. What that does, and I encourage everybody that'll be on the website tomorrow, but that is a more in-depth, detailed look at the different areas that affect the forecast. Every revenue area, every expenditure area, and my assumptions that are tied to each area, how we came up with the numbers. It's a very detailed document. At the end, there's the 5-year forecast, there's a 3-year forecast, and in the last page there is the net effect of our first year of the fair school funding plan. So I put that in there. I also gave you a copy of the Forecast 5 is the group that helps with the forecast. Their software is phenomenal analysis. So I put in there a document called the State Funding Supplement to the 5-year forecast. And if the board so chooses, I can do an hour presentation on that at our next meeting, but that's very in-depth and it gives you a lot of information on the net effect of the fair school funding plan on the Garfield Lake City schools. So I gave you that as some bedtime reading material if you so choose. And then, just to show just everything that's involved in the funding plan. And then last thing is that we did build in, we know that wellness went away. Wellness is now part of the fair school funding plan formula amount and the amount we get for our state foundation. So that came back. So we brought all those expenditures back into the operating fund as part of the forecast. Purchase services, the big thing there is, like I said earlier, is that now with the direct funding of Ed Choice Community Schools to open tuition, we've reduced our purchase service expenditures by roughly $6 million. So that's a good thing. Salaries and benefits are still below the 80%, which they consider the top of the line, anything over 80% is not good because of fixed cost. And there's no other, if you ever need to cut expenditures, if you have a lot of fixed costs, that means cutting people, we don't really want to get there. So we're at 72%, so that's a good thing moving forward. As I said before, the cash balances start to erode by 2025, 2026. Those are the big areas. But what I also like to say is that we need to concentrate more on the 3 years coming up. So all in all, it's a good looking forecast with a combination of the fair school funding plan and moving of the ESSER money. We should be fiscally stable for the next 3 years or so. Any questions on the forecast?
Did you share that this year for the first time you built in?
Okay, I could share that, absolutely. For the first time, being that we had some balances to work with, I should say, I have built-in salary increases. We are coming up to negotiations with both the unions. So I built in salary increases of a 3-year period of 1%, 2%, 3% of the base. Year 1 is 1%, year 2, 2%, year 3%. And on top of that, we built in, because ESSER allows us to do this, we built in stipends of 2% in year 1 and 1% in year 3. So overall net effect would be a 3% increase in year 1, and 3% increase in year 2, and a 3% increase in year 3. It's the first time that we've got enough balances, so we just start looking at doing something for both of the certified and classified staff. Mr. Juby?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Kim?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels?
Yes. Motion to approve personnel agenda items.
Where do we hire the classified stuff?
Glendale,
Okay, so same place that we did.
but we also have a list too for the districts, so that we provide in the building, so we not have everybody apply for the building subs for those various positions.
Okay. And I also saw the increases for that. Did I miss increase for certified staff? Or did you just do it for classified?
Yes, that's
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
Mr. Juby?
Yes.
Ms. Kim?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels? We did that as part of the personnel items. No, you're-
So moved.
I read what the changes, that the SRO will provide drug use prevention education. The idea on how often and the format of that part of the program.
That's the first time we put it in, it's not a for the information.
You have that, what would they have in the city, what they have, is that a change? Or is that all?
That's always been in place, and the way that works is that the city takes that right off the top of our city income tax. So they deduct it, but it's always been the half and half, it's split across right down the middle in the past years.
Okay, so we just add it to the money.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. King,
Yes.
Ms. Morrison,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes. Can I have a motion to approve the miscellaneous agenda items 15 and 15.2?
Yeah, if I could comment, President Daniels, on 15.1, the resolution implementing a portion of strategic plan that addressing actually this facility here. As part of our middle school assessment and the designated of ESSER dollars, we can only use ESSER dollars for COVID-related items. And part of our middle school assessment was being able to look at different plans for the middle school, either building new or building or renovating the whole building, or doing a hybrid of new or old, combining, keeping the gym and band rooms. Well, in saving money and trying to think what's best for the district, we decided that I think probably the best way is it's either to save money is a combination of doing the band rooms, middle or gymnasium, and then building new, which allows us to use COVID money to do that with the windows, HVAC, everything else. So to get that ball started and rolling, we feel like we can use the COVID and designate that right away and not lose any windows or window per se, not doing windows. The window per se of next summer to get that ball rolling with the idea of rolling out the full middle school plan as we go. But this is just the first step in being able to start that process of getting something done by next summer. And making sure that ball is still rolling down. And we're moving forward on addressing this facility.
Well, President Daniels, just the other resolution here has to do with Senate Bill 1. One of the major issues, all of the school districts, literally all of them, all 612, have had substitute teacher shortages. So the Ohio legislature, Governor DeWine signed this into law that we are going to be allowed to have flexibility with educational requirements for certified substitute teachers. We had this flexibility last year, and what would, if the board does pass this resolution, we will work with Ren Hill, and we will allow folks that have a GED or high school diploma to also apply for substitute teaching to help us, because we are having a great struggle getting substitute teachers. This is a one-year flexibility. This is not something that's going to go into perpetuity, but we hope, along with the increase in the certified sub rates, this does help us get substitute teachers more regularly. Our fill rates are higher. That's it. Ms. Thomas?
With that registration requirement being lifted, are all subs on the same level, or will the subs have different responsibilities?
No, the subs are going to be on the same level, and they'll have same or similar responsibilities. What we have seen happen though, Ms. Thomas, especially affecting the elementary schools, is that we've had to resort to, which we do not want to do, is spot subbing. Even if there's someone consistent in the school room throughout the day, it's going to be very helpful to us. The second thing we also did is an MOU with the GHTA, which allows our teachers that are facing a COVID infection or are feeling okay or quarantine, they can also Zoom in and teach lessons, and then we can have another substitute in there. So this will help us expand that practice. Mr. Juby?
Senate Bill 1.
Yes, sir.
So you're saying that a student that graduated from high school
Yes.
can come back the next year and teach our kids the same as the teacher teaches.
Well, no, we're gonna put a parameter on there in terms of the age requirement, where we would normally have teachers that come out of school at 22 years old. And that, I student taught government with 18-year-olds when I was 22. So we will be able to do that. What this allows us, it gives us flexibility in terms of what we can and cannot do. There's no like thing that says we have to take 18-year-olds.
Go ahead.
Who's work with right now? Trying to vet those people that could potentially come here. And they, we did have a meeting with them.
Yes.
So about this, so we are, every district is a state vote at this.
Ms. Thomas, did you have another question?
Yeah, my question is about 13.1. Have you ever worked with them?
PBA has been working with us for the past. They did the designs for the elementary schools.
Okay, I didn't know that was a PBA.
Yeah.
Okay.
Formally.
15.2, all department or still gonna aggressively attempt to qualify the most highly qualified substitutes for the district. We just use this as the last resort. No one else is available. Coverage, they are asking because the lack of coverage will possibly hit our school district to go home, classroom, go home.
That is correct. We have not faced that yet. We've been very close to calling a school day off and sending the children remote because of staff absenteeism. That could happen. Luckily, we have been able to avoid that, but not in a way that I believe is educationally the best thing. The best thing is to have subs. And your point, Mrs. Daniels, we are going to pursue subs with the bachelor's degree, the normal requirements, and then, yes, and then afterward.
Explain it clearly. One thing, the buildings have done a phenomenal job of piecing things together. So, I mean, I don't want that to be, when they continue, they can be addressed in a daily talk to the buildings on what's happening with their staffing. They're doing a phenomenal job of meeting the needs of our students every day.
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate that, but this will be, this piece of legislation will be helpful to us for more educational continuity.
Yeah, I think we need to- everybody. Yes, and most definitely, been on deck, as far as making sure that we're able to continue in-person education, everything within our building. And I would say, I appreciate the efforts of the staff, the administrators, and just even the patients that students and families having with us as we navigate these unprecedented times. Where there's still a pandemic, want to make sure the question that I asked, the last resort, I think that's that. I need to know that, guys know it's not going to go past one. Still prioritizing subs, highest level. Subs complement our students and educators.
Mr. Juby,
Yes.
Ms. King,
Yeah.
Ms. Morrison, Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mrs. Daniels.
Yes. This portion of our meeting is not for the public, but this land is few items. Our policy as relates to public transportation at board meetings read as follows. All meetings of the board
and the board appointed committees are open to the public. In order for the board to fulfill its obligation to complete the planned agenda in an effective and efficient fashion, a maximum of 30 minutes of public participation may be permitted at each meeting. Each person addressing the board shall give his or her name and address. If several people wish to speak, each person is allotted 3 minutes until the total time of 30 minutes is used. During that period, no person may speak twice until all who desire to speak have had the opportunity to do so. Persons desiring more time should follow the procedure of the board to be placed on the regular agenda. The period of public participation may be extended by a vote of the majority of the board present and voting. Agendas are available to all those who attend the board meeting. The section of the agenda for public participation shall be indicated. Noted at the bottom of each agenda shall be a short paragraph outlining the board's policy on public participation at board meetings. The first member of the community that has signed up this evening is Aisha James. Ms. James, you may approach the podium if you're still here.
I'm up here, first I want to thank the Board of Education, the administration, the staff members, and active parents in the community. Because of that, I've never had to come to a meeting for my son regarding behavior or grades. He's actually one of the high honors that you guys mentioned for the quarter, along with other of our basketball players who are athletes that are also students first, who put their best foot forward every day. I'm here because of the basketball program. I know you guys are coming up with a plan in regards to like fans being there, how many can be there. And I just want to take into consideration, obviously, a lot of these students who are having issues haven't been in school, but you have a lot of good students, like in middle school, you may have 90% is doing well, don't punish the majority. And also punishes our students who's working hard, who, for Garfield, Garfield is one of the, Garfield basketball is one of the bigger programs. And the students look forward to it. So what do they have to look forward to when you take those kind of things away, when there's no peers off to be there? The students lose it and the athletes lose it. So I just want to ask you, when you're completing this plan, to think about the peers and how it will affect our basketball team as a whole.
Thank you, Ms. James. We appreciate your input this evening.
Sure, yes, I would. As I said in my presentation, we Mr. Crisno, our athletic director, met with the Lake Erie League, which is the league that our sports teams are in. 6 out of the 7 schools, the 7th hasn't made a decision yet, are limiting capacity of their gymnasiums to 25%. And we have decided to do that for 2 reasons. One, because COVID is still here. Unfortunately, this county, as I said before, has plateaued on its infection rates and also for some school climate issues, quite frankly. And what we want to do is, much like last year, we did end up opening up the indoor sporting events. We had no participants, fans at the beginning, and then we started to open it up. And we will look at the COVID rates and things we can have in place to open it up as the season progresses. However, we believe, Mr. Krasno believes this is a good starting point for us. It does allow fans back into our indoor facilities. Secondly, we did put this on the web. If there are families that are having a hardship because of the 5 ticket limit that we did put on, we will work with you on that.
It's 25%. Is any student, are students allowed to attend or just those who are invited by the players? I wasn't clear on that.
No, students are allowed to attend. We're actually working on a program almost tied into PBIS. So that'll be helpful to us.
Thank you. The second person that, community member that has signed up this evening, and please forgive me.
Natalia being,
And how do you spell the last name?
it being BENN.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Cruz. You may approach the podium. Thank you for attending this evening.
My name is Natalia Ben. I'm at 5884 Monica Lane. I've been in this district 20 years. I have 5 children, 3 alumni, and 2 that's still here, 11th grade and 8th grade in middle school. I've dealt with pretty much all of you in some type of fashion. Everybody knows who I am mostly. My issue is the same thing as talking about this COVID protocol. A couple things I wanted to address. Student body is big. I'm a nurse practitioner. I work in mental health. A lot of the kids we have in the district, I am the person prescribing their ADHD medication. So I deal with a lot of mental health things, social isolation, depression, substance abuse, which we have dealt with this district way before now. Mr. Fordham was my son's assistant principal in middle school, and that's all we talked about when he graduated in 2017 prior. So I'm here today to say that when these kids need a support system, COVID or any other thing, is we already have social isolation. We already dealt with a lot of issues, and keep pulling people apart is not working. We need to be more together. And I understand what he's saying, but I did take the liberty to call all the LDL districts in the school. I talked to mostly everybody today. Becker, they're not having any restrictions. You say they don't have a gym floor. Lorraine, they're open with no restrictions. Warrensville just decided on Friday they were going to have it open with no restrictions. Maple just decided to be open with no restrictions. Shaker, they told me they haven't decided yet. Shaw has some issues with the violence, so they're going to stick to what they already had. And Cleveland Heights, they have a more student population than they said 3,000, and they said they was going to stick with their protocol. So it's not 6 of the 7. We're number 7, but these are the people I called today. Also, people who's not involved in LDL, Euclid, Stolen, Twinsburg, Strongsville, Nordonia, and Brecksville, they're open. So I really want us to take a look at that and just make sure that, because the kids need support. They went through a lot last year. Having nobody there, we was on TV, paying an arm and a leg to watch the kids play games. It don't make sense. So that's what I want to address today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. The only thing I will address is that the athletic directors from those 6 out of the 7 schools have told us they're restricting their 25% of the population, but I'll get confirmation from Mr. Krasno if anything's changed.
And I have emails if you need it.
Yes, Mr. Juby.
Not that this, whatever she said. COVID is real. And also, we are perfect. We're not anybody else. We do what we think is best for our kids. And that's it. Thank you.
Is there any other questions or comments? I do. And another participant. Your name, ma'am? You can sign in, please. Is the board opposed to allow it? Thank you. Any opposition? Please state your name and your address.
Hi, I'm Marquisa King. I'm at 12008 Darlington Avenue. On behalf of the guys that we did bring some of the high honor 4-year varsity guys with us. As parents, this makes us incredibly emotional because for me, I traveled with COVID. I'm a registered nurse. I've traveled for hurricane relief. I've traveled to California, all in the same thing in COVID. However, since being back home, I spend time, in and out of the high school. I feel like, yes, COVID is real. However, there's no day-to-day changes that we're making inside of the schools. Previously, the kids were walking on one side of the hallway to go to class, return from class, whatever the case may be. There were additions made to, or subtractions rather, to class sizes and things like that. We're no longer functioning like that, okay? So to me, it's like, yes, we're concerned about it, but how concerned are we? There's 1,500 children on any given day inside of the school. We're not controlling where they're walking in the hallway or any of the things. They're probably still giving each other handshakes, hugs, this, that, and the other. So if we're going to be strict, then let's be completely strict. I'm not saying that you guys' intention isn't to protect these kids, but exactly what are we protecting? Are we protecting them from just COVID, or are we also protecting their mental, the social aspect of mental growth? I think that it's incredibly important that the community can support these guys. I remember a particular community member, Charlie. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Charlie religiously came to games. The more we restrict the numbers, people like that, there's no coinciding community and the students like we did with planting the tree, so that the community gets to see how amazing these young men are. So we're removing that entire piece by saying that, hey, we're only going to do 25%. However, the CDC has no restrictions on capacities for buildings or anything at this moment. So if we're following CDC protocol, because I get an email maybe twice a week with a positive case, we're not doing any special plans. We're following everything per CDC protocol, correct? If that's what we're doing, then let's do that 100% and see where it goes. If you guys are concerned about violence the first time that there's an issue or anything at a game, then you guys revisit it and hash it out however you decide. In protection of the kids that I'm asking, just like the rest of the parents and players are asking, give them an opportunity to show their leadership in controlling the environment that they're in all the time. This particular team is special to me because a lot of these guys have played together since 4th or 5th grade, so they're not just a basketball team. So, like I said, I plead the case for their social interaction. If they can go to school all day with only a mask as a pillar of protection, they can go to school. Why can't they have their same peers and support in their home?
Thank you. Are there any other comments? I think Mr. Hickey addressed everything in previous comments. I would like to thank everybody for their participation. Part of our board policy is for us to consider community voice in our decision making. So we do appreciate you putting voice to your concerns, and I have confidence that Mr. Hickey will consider the things that you said, along with prioritizing the safety and what's best for our students in the district. So we do appreciate your input this evening. The next item on our agenda this evening is, may I have a motion to adjourn? Any discussion? Moved by Mr. Judy, second by Ms. Thomas. Our next board meeting is on November. We have a special board meeting on, yes, so our next board meeting is a special board meeting on November 20th at 8:30 p.m. For 8:30 a.m. 8:30 p.m. For the purposes of Board of Education to begin the creation of a equity policy for our school district. Our next work session is December 13th, 2021 at 6 p.m. at the Board of Education office. Mr. Saluka, the adjournment was moved by Mr. Julie, second by Ms. Thomas. Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes.
Yes, meeting's adjourned.